Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. The ghouls and goblins at Morning Joe, i.e. Joe Scarborough and Meeker Brzezinski, are back in their time travel machine. They went from a decade ago giggling and laughing with Donald Trump, having him call in nonstop in his pajamas to Morning Joe, to then comparing him to Hitler in recent years. And now they have traveled back to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring of the president-elect. You really can't make this stuff up.
On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit.
Buckle up. We are going to remind you of how they helped create Trump and now how they are reversing themselves for their own gain. But first, if you did not see, I want to make sure you have seen. We broke a massive story last week. We obtained exclusive audio of a top EPA official who's been on the ground in East Palestine, Ohio. That's where the multi-billion-dollar railroad company, Norfolk Southern, unnecessarily chemically nuked over a year ago. They released 1.1 million pounds of toxic, cancerous vinyl chloride over the people of Ohio and Pennsylvania. Well, we got audio of the top EPA official there basically saying Norfolk Southern lied to the residents and the air was not safe for them to return home to, and admitting that the EPA failed to provide adequate warnings to the residents about the health risks posed to them. Please read and share that story on Status Coup's Substack, which you could get for free. That's statuscoup.substack.com. Now, Morning Joe announced this morning that they recently traveled to Mar-a-Lago to restart communications with the president-elect Donald Trump. Well, before we get to their, quote, ring-kissing mission down to Mar-a-Lago, I want to kind of take you through a little time travel here so we could see how Morning Joe is responsible in large part for Donald Trump and how I don't think you could believe anything these people say. Let's start with, I believe this was a day or two after Donald Trump rode down that golden escalator in 2015, where Morning Joe interviewed him right after he announced his run for president. This is almost a decade ago now. Let's take a listen.
Well, after years of speculation and flirtations, Donald Trump formally entered the race for the White House this week, and we sat down with the wealthiest presidential candidate to get his ideas on the economy, jobs, and also something else. What was that?
Well, his surprising answer to who the best president of the last 25 years was. But first, we wanted to know, why jump in now? Take a look.
It's official.
You're doing it.
You are doing it.
Why did you decide to do it this year when you passed all those other years?
Well, I looked at it, but not very seriously. Mitt Romney let a lot of people down last time. He was supposed to do better, and he disappeared. He choked. Something happened to him at the end last time. The country's in trouble. We have a big fat bubble coming up. You watch. We have artificially induced low interest rates. We have a stock market which has benefited me, but we are in a bubble like you've never seen before.
Explain.
Probably we have 20% unemployment, not 5.6%. So I just think the country is doing terribly. We're being ripped off by everybody, every country, including China, big league, including
describe
Mexico.
The bubble. You're talking about this bubble. What bubble?
We are in an economic financial bubble, in my opinion. It's got to be fixed fast.
You notice how they didn't ask anything about his Mexicans or rapists and murderers and drug lords? You notice how they were giddy at the beginning of that interview? Let's continue to what we think in this interview, again, almost 10 years ago, is going to be somebody asking about Donald Trump's, harsh words for immigrants.
Two things, Donald. One, you're smart enough to know that words are.
What do you mean
weapons.
smart enough? What does that mean?
You're smart enough to know that words are
Well, I
weapons.
went to the Wharton School of Finance. I have to sort of say that because, you know, like somebody says, like, you know, you're smart enough. But go ahead.
Words are weapons. So you have to have some form of collegiality if you're president of the United States.
I get along with everybody.
Okay.
I get along with the Chinese. By the way, people think I don't like China. I love China. I sold an apartment for $55 million to a Chinese gentleman. The largest bank in the world from China, by far the largest bank. Citibank is like, I asked him, Citibank is like a small subsidiary, they told me, okay? The largest bank in the world is a tenant of mine in Trump Tower. I have buildings. I own the Bank of America building. Big deal. I own the Bank of America building in San Francisco. I deal with China. I have a great relationship with China. Business Week magazine has an article. What do the Chinese most want? One of the 10 things. Anything Trump. So don't tell me about China. I know China. China cannot believe they're getting away with what they're getting away with.
What would you do about the tax code in the United States?
Oh man, there's a point to this. Just buckle up, stick with me. So Joe and Mika, you know, they can't ask him about, hey, what did you mean that Mexicans are murderers and rapists and drug lords? That's a little harsh, Donald. A little xenophobic, racist, bigoted. So Mike Barnicle, who's a Morning Joe guy forever and ever, you think he's going to bring it up when he says, hey, Donald, words have meaning. And, you know, he quickly abandons that line of questioning when Trump pivots to China and then totally abandons that and asks him about the tax code. Okay, so Joe and Mika giggling, excited that Trump's coming on, doesn't ask him about his horrendous comments, thus normalizing him. This was the beginning of the normalizing of Trump. Their co-host there, you know, tepidly tries to challenge him, but then moves off. Now let's see the end of this interview because this is just corporate media in a nutshell that gave this man, I mean, we're talking billions of dollars in free advertising, thus helping him to the White House. Hillary Clinton did not help because her campaign was horrendous. But these folks, other than Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party, were the most responsible, in my view, for Trump. Let's take a listen to the end of this interview. Watch Mika's face in particular towards the end of this interview.
43 or Obama?
And why?
I would really say Clinton, probably. I would have to say Clinton.
And why?
There was a little spirit. Frankly, he would have been, had he not met Monica, had he not met Paula, had he not met various and sundry semi-beautiful women, he would have had a much better deal going. Do you agree with that, Joe? He would have had a much better. No, seriously. I mean, he was destroyed by that. He was really hurt very badly by it. But he's Teflon. You know, it's amazing the way. Look at the email situation. Anybody else that would have been she would have been brought down. I mean, I know how strong you are on that subject, but anybody else? Can you imagine if a Republican deleted all of their emails after getting a subpoena? They'd be in jail right now. With her, it's like I don't even hear them talking about it anymore. So I got to hand it to Clinton. Her to a lesser extent, but now maybe more.
Oh, God. Did you see Mika's face when he said semi-beautiful women? It looked like she just got off one of those, too fast spin wheels at the amusement park and it wants to throw up. She couldn't believe he said it, but she held in any words to challenge that misogyny. And then they tease at the end of that interview, wait for us talking about how Donald Trump raised his family, after cheating on all his wives and really never actually being there to raise his kids. So that was the first interview after Trump announced his run for presidency. Now, why did I show you that thing from 10 years ago? Because there's quite the evolution that shows these folks, not just at MSNBC, not just at Morning Joe, but these folks, you can't trust them. You can't trust that they even mean what they say because they literally all about access. And then if they think it's better to be the opposition to the people they previously gave figuratively sexual favors to for access, then there'll be the resistance. But then when they think it's better to once again go kiss the ring for access, they'll go right back to kissing the ring. Let's take a look at this just a few weeks after he announced his presidential run in 2015.
Let's now bring in Donald Trump. Donald, I'm reading back this week from New York Times and Washington Post articles talking about how your campaign was coming to an end after your McCain quotes. It didn't really feel like the end of a presidential campaign yesterday, did it?
Well, I'm leading in all of the polls by a lot, and I was just listening to you, Joe, and, you know, we all love you and Mika, but I was listening to you talking about Bush and Rubio and, you know, a couple of others, and you sort of forgot to mention my name, even though I'm creaming them all in the polls. I don't understand quite what you're doing.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? We've been talking about you for a week. What are you...
Joe, you were talking about Kasich, and you mentioned Bush and Rubio and somebody else that I won't mention because I actually like that person.
What are you talking? What are you talking about, Donald?
I think someday it's my ambition to get you.
I've been talking about you for a week.
No, I agree with that. But when you were talking about Bush, who, by the way, is about 10 points lower than me, you sort of mentioned, like, you know, can Kasich beat Bush? Well, you know, excuse me, what about Trump?
Donnie, what are you talking about? We've been sucking you up for a week. Donald, what are you talking about? After you said you don't like John McCain, who I don't like John McCain either. Well, he's dead now, but I didn't. But, you know, we don't challenge you at all that you said you don't like John McCain because he was caught. I like soldiers who weren't caught. You know, after I dodged the military and dodged Vietnam, what did he say? You had flat feet, whatever. But I'm not going to challenge you on that, Donald. I need access to you. You are ratings gold. Donald, what are you talking about? I was kissing your ring for a week. I didn't mention you enough. I'll do better. So this is 2015, Morning Joe. And then infamously, if you forgot about this, in 2016, they did a town hall interview with Trump. And somehow the audio from a commercial break was leaked, showing them talking during the commercial break. Tell me if this sounds like, you know, the leaders of the resistance here, or people who were actually serious that Donald Trump was a fascist or Hitler or anything like that. Again, this is during a commercial break. Joe and Mika palling around with Donald during their town hall with him.
What do you have after this?
I make a speech, get on a plane, make a speech. I'm working.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Bloomberg poll, all the polls out today look great in South Carolina. All of them.
Yeah.
They look good. Well, let's see. But I'm being hit. You know, they're spending $75 million on negative ads on me over the last 2 weeks. Are they catching on at all?
No. Doesn't work that way.
What do you think? Are they catching on?
No.
They're vicious. They're spending a tremendous amount on negative ads on me.
No. You know what I thought was the kind of wow moment was the guy you brought up on stage.
Yeah, that was good.
We played it several times this morning.
We played it up against Obama.
The both guys. Both guys.
What we did is we played Obama first.
The young guy
and
was
then we
a champ.
played the guys.
I saw it. I watched your show this morning. You have me almost as a legendary figure. I like.
No, I tell you, this morning, what we basically said today was we were completely wrong about the
Totally.
debate. Yeah.
I thought
I did really well in the debate show, I have to tell you.
I didn't. Yes, Alex?
3 viewer questions.
You did not, right?
Oh my God, I was like, he's melting down. I think his head's going to explode. I thought your head was going to explode.
We were wrong.
I did.
We thought what?
Your head was going to explode.
No,
Yeah.
no, I thought I did.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter was
Don't forget
screaming
that
at the TV.
By the way, he told me, he goes, I was having fun.
Oh my God.
What do we have, one more segment?
One more segment, and then we're good. Thank you for doing this.
Okay. I'm doing it because I
said,
get nothing. You know, you get great ratings and a raise. Me, I get nothing.
We're getting a real window into your... So...
Well...
Just make us all look good, that's it.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, Joe says. Let's make us all look good. These are the leaders of the resistance, or were the leaders of resistance until, I don't know, 72 hours ago or whatever, when they traveled down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss President-elect Trump's ring. Yeah. And you might say, Jordan, we know all this. Why do you need to show me? Because I think it's very important that, you know, people have a very, very short-term memory in this country. I call it selective amnesia. And people forget often the who, what, when, where, and why, and where people stood. Now, I don't think Morning Joe, if they were consistent the whole way, would have been opposing Trump for the right reasons entirely. They would have been opposing him for, his bigotry, his xenophobia, misogyny, and those are all good things. But they wouldn't have acknowledged that, well, he's, actually cutting through and growing, a base based on the fact that people like Morning Joe and the elitists and the corporatists running the Democratic Party and the neoliberal cabal at MSNBC and elsewhere have basically been champions of the neoliberal era that has completely hollowed out huge swaths of the country. So they wouldn't actually cover it from that aspect. They would only focus on, his bigotry and things like that, which you should focus on. But they were never actually going to challenge him on those things when it mattered. And they were never going to actually give the truth to their audience, who are mostly limousine liberals or upper middle class suburbia, that he's tapping into justifiable anger because the government sold out and literally sold people's jobs to other countries, Democrats and Republicans. He doesn't mean it. He's not going to do anything for those people, but he's tapping in to a righteous anger. Let's fast forward to, about a year ago, during the campaign. It was still Biden running, and Morning Joe is addressing Trump and his awful comments about killing political opponents, going after the generals, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see the evolution of how it went from palling around with Donald Trump, giggling around, pom-poms during commercial breaks, to comparisons that, basically this guy's Hitler.
Well, John, if I can interrupt you,
this is what we got.
This is our task. I want to talk a couple of specifics with you, John. First of all, he's talking about the execution of Mark Milley. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said he would have been executed in prior days simply because Mark Milley wasn't going along with his plan to overthrow the government. And yesterday he ranted that he was going to take over NBC and MSNBC if he won the 2024 election. He was ranting on his social media posts and claimed the networks are the enemy of the people. This is, of course, a phrase that Stalin used, that after Stalin died, Khrushchev said it was such a dangerous political, in the Soviet Union, such a dangerous political phrase that he outlawed the use of it. And he said that NBC and MSNBC should be investigated for country-threatening treason. So here we go, John. In 2 days, he threatens to, says the chairman of the Joint Chiefs probably should be executed. And then he says that the news network that is most critical of him should be taken off the air. This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them.
So that's quite the evolution from, let's all, paint each other's nails and fluff each other's pillows and pound around during commercial breaks. Oh, thank you so much for doing this, Donald. Oh, yes, we're all here to make each other look great. To I actually agree with some of the things he was criticizing Trump for. I don't know if it's quite Hitler level, but it's certainly proto-fascist. Trump has certainly openly talked about going after his political opponents. He's joked about killing his political opponents. He has joked about killing the media or bullets flying through the media. There's real things to criticize Trump for, and it doesn't mean you have Trump derangement. Call a spade. He does talk like a fascist, and some of the things he is openly saying he's going to do are fascist. I don't think that is extreme to say at all, but it was kind of evident from 2015 and 16 when they were palling around with him and they were giggling like schoolgirls together, that he was saying and doing things then that sounded pretty fascist. His policies sounded pretty fascist, yet they were not comparing him to Hitler then. They were not comparing him to Orban then, because there was money to be made off of him. There was money to be made off of Donald Trump. He was the sugar high that kept on giving for MSNBC. And if there's money to be made, they are going to make it. You know how much Joe Scarborough and Mrs. Scarborough are worth? Listen, not all wealthy people are, horrible scoundrels, but a lot of them are. What's Joe Scarborough's net worth and salary? Joe is worth approximately $25 million, according to Celebrity Net Worth, with an estimated annual salary of $8 million. Yeah. How about his wife? Mika has an estimated net worth of $20 million, with an annual salary of $8 million. Wow. Boy, they must have a hard time buying groceries. Well, they don't actually go to actually buy their own groceries, I'm sure. But you kind of see a problem that these are the people that we give huge microphones and endless airtime to. These are the people that the most reliable voters, which are older people, which are the baby boomers. We got plenty of baby boomers who watch us. I love you. But by the data, the most reliable voters that keep giving us corporate Democratic establishment nominees, that keep voting against, the younger generation because of selfishness, in my view. Not all of you, but a lot of you. They're getting propaganda from these multimillionaires with net worth of $20 million on, it's woke. It's the woke. That's why Harris lost. Not the fact that people are starving, not the fact that people can't afford rent, people can't afford groceries, people are maxing out their credit cards and are in debt, people are working 2 jobs, that we're becoming an automated gig economy. No. Yeah, these are the people that will have the pulse on all that, right? Net worth of $20 million each, $8 million salaries. These are the people who are telling us and lecturing us and gaslighting us on the economy's great. Everything's wonderful. Give me a break. And now to the finale. Here is Mr. and Mrs. Scarborough. This morning, after palling around and helping create Donald Trump, then evolving to he's Hitler, on why they went down to Mar-a-Lago a few days ago to kiss the ring or restart communications with the president-elect.
Of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. My father often spoke with world leaders with whom he and the United States profoundly disagreed. That's a task shared by reporters and commentators alike. We had not spoken to President Trump since March of 2020, other than a personal call Joe made to Trump on the morning after the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats on some of the most divisive issues. And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we?
So, resistance liberals are melting down on Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever the hell they are now. By the way, I just joined Blue Sky. If you're on Blue Sky, follow me there at Jordan Sheridan. But the problem isn't that they met with Donald Trump. I think you should meet with people you disagree with. I think you should try and have dialogue. The problem is that's not consistent with comparing him to Hitler. That's not consistent with literally helping create Donald Trump in the first place by all the palling around we just showed you. You think so highly of yourself that you're going to go and change Hitler's mind to not, I don't know, deport all of them. You're going to change you're going to change his mind not to sign a national abortion ban. You're going to change his mind not to court-martial the generals that, according to the reports, they want to court-martial generals who were involved with the Afghanistan withdrawal. You, Mr. and Mrs. Joe, you're that persuasive? Nah, I don't think they're going to meet with him to try and change his mind or restart communications. I think they're going to meet with him for access. I think they're going to meet with him to help their ratings. I think they're going to meet with him because now it's better to be on his good side than comparing him to Hitler. And maybe, just maybe, they think he was actually serious about going after MSNBC's license, which would be very hard for President Trump to pull off, but he is going to have Congress. He's got a Supreme Court basically willing to do whatever he wants. He's got the courts. So maybe they are scared at the monster they created. You know, at the end of the day, it's easy to go after Morning Joe. It gets clicks. But this is why it's so important to have independent media growing. Because not only do we need to reach young people who have dropped in turnout. As I showed last week, there's been a 7% drop in turnout in ages 18 to 44. That's millennial and Gen Z, age 18 to 44. 7% drop in turnout from 2016 to this last election in 2024. But we got to really start reaching a lot of the older folks that are consuming this. I mean, this is like junk food. This is brainwashing and corporate propaganda and gaslighting to the umpth degree, but it's very effective. We need to reach these people to show them, forget the labels, that it's about the Gilded Age, stupid. We're all being screwed by these gaslighters, by these elitists pretending that they have the pulse on the country. They're continuing to push us, no matter how many times they help us lose to a used car salesman, push us further and further right. And they are literally rich limousine liberals laughing their way to the bank as they do it.